The first game on this episode we're going to talk about is Trade on the Tigris. Since Matt's not here, I'm going to do him the honor, or do him the favor. It was designed by Geoff Engelstein and Ryan Sturm. The artist is Scott Hartman and Kristen Pauline, and the publisher is Tasty Minstrel Games. So Trade on the Tigris is a game where you play over 5 rounds trying to get the most points by the end of the game. You do so by moving up and down on some tracks and doing a real-time trading phase in which you will do kind of a pit-style trading where everybody's screaming over each other, be like, I've got this and this and this or whatever. Mm-hmm. So kind of give a little bit more deep dive, but without giving all the rules. Basically, there's only 5 phases to each round. There's a development phase. And this kind of this correlates with the tracks that are out on the table. So there's 2 tracks, and these tracks have, you start off in the middle. One of them is the government track, and one is the religion track. So on the government track, if you go to the left, you're going to be dictatorship, and if you go to the right, it's democracy. And on the religion track, you go towards Marduk, and the other one you go to Asher. And so what you're trying to do is each of these tracks have like spaces on them, and once you get past certain spaces, you unlock the better decks of cards that are sitting underneath of them. So the idea is to kind of go far off on one of the tracks so you can pull from deck 3, which is like the best cards for that end of the track. Because you start off in the middle, it's kind of like generic cards for the religion and generic cards for the government. And as you go left and right in either of those tracks, you unlock the first, second, and third stages of that type of religion or government, and you get cooler cards. So during the deployment phase, you're going to draw 2 cards from the from whatever deck you get to draw from both of those. So you get 2 cards from the government and 2 cards from the religion. You're going to choose one of those each and keep them and reveal them. Everybody goes around the table and talks about what they got. They'll do different things, like maybe allow you to draw more cards in the production phase, or maybe be able to have a special ability that you can access, or maybe gives you in-game scoring mechanisms and such. You'll move on to the production phase, in which you're going to draw good cards. There's a standard deck of goods and a special deck of goods. And some of those development cards will allow you to draw those cards. You always start with the game with some generic ones that allow you to draw a handful of those cards anyway. But you might be able to upgrade those to trade goods, which are better payouts. Mm-hmm. Then you go on to the trade phase, where everybody has 5 minutes to openly trade with everyone. And these trade cards, like I said, there are basic goods and special goods. And the on the top part of the card, there is a track that tells you, like, if you turn in 3 fish at the end, you're going to get this many points, right? That scoring ladder is the same for all the basic goods. So it doesn't matter what you have, but you got to have more of the same good, like fish or barley or whatever. And then the bottom of the card will do a special kind of ability that might move you up on these tracks. On the government track or religion track, it might also give you some wonder points. I can't remember what those are called. There's a culture points, and there's also barbarians and victory points and such like that. So when you're trading, you have to tell the truth about the top part, but you can lie about the bottom parts. The reason you might want to do that is because those tracks are tug of war. So if I give George a dictator card and he's actually going up on the democracy track, he's going to go backward on that democracy track back towards the center. So it kind of helps stifle other people's plans because it gets them out of those 2nd and 3rd level decks, and plus those spaces are worth more and more victory points as you keep going up.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the game.
At the end of the game, right.
Yeah.
You move on to the mercantile phase. So after you're done trading, you get to basically resolve everything that you gathered. Some of those things you can put into the warehouse so you don't score them right then. So even though you are lying about some of the cards you're trading, it doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to be harmed by them, because you can store them in the warehouse and not score them. But it might also kind of diminish your points because, maybe instead of 6 fish, now you only have 5. And the more that you have of one thing actually increases more and more. But you don't get that other barbarian that you might have gotten from that card, and it saves you from the next phase, basically, of being suffered a barbarian attack. So you go through, and one at a time you kind of resolve what you have. Like, I have 3 fish, I have 3 of this good, and I go up on this track twice and get a victory point and a barbarian, and maybe a culture point or whatever. You go around, everybody does that. Then you move on to the last phase of each round, which is the Civic Phase, in which case you resolve 2 things. One, in all these phases, you're resolving any of the development cards that you have that say they resolve in that phase. Otherwise, the basic stuff that happens during the Civic Phase is whoever has the most barbarians will suffer a barbarian attack. If they suffer victory point loss equal to the number of barbarian tokens they have, then they go back down to 2. Then whoever has the most culture points has a golden age, and they will get a benefit based on the round. Most of the time it's drawing from the decks like 1, 2, and 3 as the game goes on. The very last round of the game, which is 7, you just get 7 victory points. Neither of these things, the barbarian or the culture, happen in the first round. It's only the 2 through 5. That's one round. You basically do that over and over. You do that 5 times, and whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. So the last thing I will mention before we go on, we can bring up anything else if we remember it or want to mention it specifically, but during rounds 2 and above, you do shuffle in these, I think they're called disaster cards, into the trade deck. And then as people draw those, they can trade those off. And those are really bad. Most of the time, I think all but one, you tell the truth about the top and lie about the bottom, but the bottom is red, and it does something very bad for whoever you're trading it to and ends up resolving it. So, and you cannot store those in the warehouse. You will suffer that. So you need to trade it around.
It's like a hot potato.
Yeah, they end up being like hot potatoes. So
unless someone says, I just gave that card to Tim.
Don't trade with him.
No more trading with him.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Now you bring that up, that would actually be a fun trick to do. And then be like, oh, I just traded George something bad. Don't trade. And then you trade with me and I give you the card. That'd be so wrong.
It would.
What'd you all think about this? I mean, just random stuff.
I liked it a lot. I know in a lot of trading games, you know, there's not a lot of trading happening, or you don't even take up, you know, part of the time. You know, you got 2 minutes to do it, and 30 seconds in, you're like, okay, we're done. we're off the, you know, the trading part of this game. But in this game, was it 5 minutes? Because you're usually taking, you know, all 5 minutes trying to get all your trades in. And I know we played with I think 5 players.
We played max limit, yeah.
Okay, so that might have been part of it too, because I'm not sure if it changes between, you know, 3 players or 4 players or 5 players.
It plays to 6. Actually, we didn't play max, but it is always 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we were trading the whole time, every time, which was nice.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's really interesting is even though it's 5 minutes, it seems to get shorter compoundly.
Yeah. Because you get more and more cards as you go, you're progressing through.
Right, you get more and more cards, and there's just more and more trades that need to happen. So it's like, man, 5 minutes is not enough.
Yeah,
it ends up being enough, but
but barely sometimes.
One thing I don't think you mentioned this is some of the cards that you can get during the course of the game is those are cards that you have to give to other people. Because
I didn't.
They have no benefit for yourself, so they require trading in order to.
To be beneficial,
effect.
right?
And you get those from the development cards. So you might pick a card that makes you, you know, like, I don't know, get barbarian or like lose a barbarian every time. But then, oh no, like what was the one that's attacking?
No, it's usually stuff like, you know, it'll move you up on a track.
That's right, yeah.
For just that one time, but it gives you a card that you can trade away.
Well, not just that one time. I think those actually do it every development phase. So every phase.
There was 2 types,
yeah. And so even though you're getting this really cool benefit, you also get a card that does nothing for you if you end up with it, so you want to trade it out.
Well, it gives you a trade card.
Yeah,
it's trade bait. It incentivizes you to trade.
Yeah, I really like those actually.
That was a clever addition.
Yeah, and they're double sided, so you can't lie about them. I mean, they're not supposed to anyway, but they make them double sided, so you can just kind of hold them up. Right. Be like, you know what? I'll give you an even trade, you know, but I'll also throw in this as a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to. You could say, this is not an even trade because I'm throwing this in as a bonus.
Right.
I mean, that's true, yeah.
You should also give me this other thing.
But you might do it because they might be like, I don't know, 2 cards for 2 cards. I don't know. You know what? We're running out of time. Bam.
Right.
Here's an incentive.
Yeah.
Because it does nothing for me.
Right.
So it's cool. There's one that says that, like, you get attacked by the barbarian, or not by the barbarians, but if you don't have a specific symbol, you get attacked and lose victory points in addition to the barbarian thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the card you get to trade out makes you immune to the raid.
Right.
That's helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Be like, well, I'm gonna raid you, but I'll protect you.
Right. I had that card.
Yeah, those are pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you can trade them off and then they get trade off again, and just I don't know, it's just the trading aspect of this is really cool because I mean we really like Pit and
and you usually are you know, you are going for a certain thing, or then you might pivot, and you're trying to get rid of some stuff, and you're trying to get rid of some stuff, and I can add those two things together and get something. Get some points.
Yeah.
And even if you get something that you can't really use this round, you can save it for next round to kind of prep for next round, or like you said, you can save stuff that would not be beneficial for you for this round and try to give it off next round.
What did y'all think about the disaster cards, the bad cards?
I feel like there weren't enough of them.
I thought that too. That's actually what I put in here. Like, I wish there was more.
Even if there were just enough.
I put even.
Well, I didn't see a lot.
If you're not the one getting them, then you would think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's weird because you play the same decks for the same amount of people. And so they show up more in a 5-player game, but if you're playing 3 players, they wouldn't show up as much.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or if people aren't drawing or picking the deployment or development cards that allow you to get more special goods.
I mean, in a way, those were just bad cards, but in a way, there are normal cards that are bad as well, because it is something that, you don't want barbarians, or you don't want to go a certain way on a track.
Right.
So it could be not beneficial for you to take it.
Yeah, those are pretty fun to trade to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because of, one thing I didn't mention, and just because we can talk about it as we go, but at the end of each track, there's like a radicalism spot.
Oh,
so if you
go too far.
Yeah, if you go off the deep end, not only do you not get the draw from, you basically get the draw from the level 1 of that track instead of the level 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you fall off the deep end, and it's also worth like dramatically
less
less points than the last couple spaces. And so
Yes.
those are really good at trade to people. So everyone's super cautious on the last round of the game.
Right.
I don't need that many cards, because you only store 3. So maybe, but if you get a 4th, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just back up and say overall how I feel about the game, and
Sure.
just to give it some context. This is a game that has so many things that I don't like.
Right.
And so, for example, civilization games I don't like.
Oh, I like civilization games.
I know.
Yeah.
And
I know. Yeah.
and trading games, especially trading games where
I would say
everyone is trading at the same time,
Mhm.
I don't like. There's just all these aspects that make this game one that I should not have enjoyed, but I did enjoy it.
Mhm.
So that says
Kind
a
of
lot for
with
the game.
you too. Yeah. I would say typically I don't like a lot of trading games, but there have been a few here recently that's kind of spurred that back up, usually because it's on a time, it's limited, and there's reason to trade. Whereas some games, they're like, okay, if you want to do any trades, do it during this segment of the game. But
Yes.
no, anybody want to trade? Nobody wants to trade.
When
It's like-
well, for me, when it's an unstructured trading time,
Mhm.
that means anyone can trade anything with anybody, and people can be left out. The people that aren't allowed, the people that just happen to get left out,
Mhm.
are just left out, and then the game is unbalanced and it's no fun.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that's true.
and that can happen more often than not. Just because of the way that people's
I like when we're playing.
Attitudes,
Whoever wasn't being vocal, I'm like, what do you got? Just,
Yeah.
we'll talk calmly. What you got?
and it's always about who's playing the game and how it's played.
Yeah.
But you can have games like that. I played a game of Sidereal Confluence, however you say that.
Mhm.
Sidereal, I don't know. Anyway, in which I was basically just frozen out, and everyone else is trading with each other because they had what they needed. And the game is supposed to be designed so that doesn't happen,
Mhm.
but it did happen.
Mm.
And that was one of the most miserable gaming experiences I've ever had.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's lame.
It was bad. And this one could devolve into that, I think, just because of the nature of the game. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, in our case, it didn't. In the few times that I've played it, it hasn't happened.
Right.
And I
like
have
the only
enjoyed it.
time that I would say that you might be frozen out is when, like, oh, I just gave him a bad card.
Or,
And then no
yeah.
one wants to trade with you for that
Sure.
round.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it really depends on the luck of the draw. I just happened to draw 4 fish.
There is that. Luckily, I don't think that happened a lot. But you're right. Because even if you draw 4 or 5 fish and it's a lot of points, it might still mess you up on the tracks. So you're kind of like, that was
Right.
cool, but now I got to switch away
Right.
some fish to get other fish.
Oh, these are democratic.
Right. Yeah. You like
Which
to
is just a strange
Democrats.
sentence.
It is a strange sentence. I guess that's the way you're trading them. I don't know. maybe that's
Yeah.
I didn't really read that too much into it, but maybe who knows. But it's interesting because when you're doing the trading, it seems more calculated, even though it's still a speed trading type of environment because it's real time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to rush it. It's not like Pit or like something like Happy Salmon
Right, it's
where
not
you're just
just
freaking out.
I got 2 cards.
Yeah, no, you're like,
right.
I'll trade you this for what kind of bad? What do you mean? It's like you waste a lot of time just questioning the other person. You're like, don't try to ruin my.
Well, and then you're like, well, it might not be exactly what you want, but it's not too bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, I personally prefer Pit. I like the way trading happens.
I do like Pit.
In Pit because you don't know what
It's
you're
about
trading.
the same length of game, yeah.
The trading happens.
When you play Pit once, you're like, that was really fun. Yeah, let's play it again. How many? 500 points. We're going to be here all night.
If you actually played to 500 points, I agree with you.
We like to just play it.
Just one time through and you're good.
Or do a short game, first whatever.
Or you just play and it's definitely one of those games where I think we just played until everyone's bored and then whoever has the most points wins.
Yeah.
But this is like the gamer version of Pit. I don't think it's that long. I thought it was
like an hour and a half kind of time frame.
Did you time it last time?
I probably did.
Eric's gonna look it up.
While you guys are conversing.
I do have a criticism. I do think that it doesn't need to be as long as it is because you're doing the same thing every time.
Yeah, well, that could just be with 5 players too. I wonder if 4 players would be an excellent amount of people and still be really long.
It might be better.
Or still be a good length.
Like those tracks didn't need to be as long as they are. The game could have been shorter and you just move up, on those tracks at a brisker pace, I feel.
So our 5-player game was 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Well, that's not terrible.
But it's not terrible, but when you're doing the same thing over and over, it feels longer than it is. I feel like it could have been shorter.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. So
probably the only way to really, what, maybe we were. I will say that we during the grab your card phase or whatever the development phase,
right,
and during the scoring and stuff, we did kind of go turn based on that. We could do it all at once.
Okay.
You would need to trust, like the development phase is like, does anybody got anything that anybody needs to know about? Okay, cool. Like if you're just drawing another card, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a card that's like, I get bonus points for this specific type of thing, I don't know. Like it just depends on if it would be relevant for other people to know what you're doing. But the scoring, you can almost just, you would have to trust the people you're playing with to score properly and to move up and down on the tracks properly. Mm-hmm. But you could do all that at the same time because that was a huge time sink.
I think so. That we could have done it a bit faster.
Streamlined.
Yeah. It's just like score your own stuff.
Yeah.
And then maybe announce how many points you got so you could be like, whoa.
And once you know the game a little better, I'm sure you could do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that would probably, I think that would shorten it pretty well. At least I think to an hour and a half, I would say.
Right.
Which would be a great length for 5 players for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it probably felt a bit longer to me just because it's not my kind of game.
That's fair. Yeah.
So.
Cool. Going back, which we didn't talk about. Yeah. The disaster cards, I would like to see more of them, even if you're still limited to putting 5 in the deck. Right. It would be cool to have some variance there.
Oh, that's true.
What's in there.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like add a couple more for, or I don't know. Something.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, because they were really fun. Like, I don't know if I want to like saturate the deck with them because then all that stuff's everywhere. Then it would just stifle the trading phase.
Yeah.
I think that would be the case, right? If there's too many bad cards out there, you're like,
right.
Yeah, I don't trade with any of you people.
Right.
Keep your stuff. But maybe
that's true.
Yeah. But it would be cool to have a variety instead of using always the same 5 because you will see pretty much all of them the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered the other thing I was trying to think of when I was listing the things about this game that I didn't like. One is that it's also an engine builder. You build up the card tableau in front of you to get more cards, right? And sort of you're trying to make like sort of an engine so that you can have
a
more
engine,
to trade with. It's very light,
mm-hmm.
but I still don't generally like that.
Oh,
but anyway, all those things taken together,
I
I still actually had a good time playing the game.
Yeah. I really liked it, and I might get the history a little bit weird, but it's funny because Ryan and Geoff are the host of Ludology, and they designed this. It seems like a mockery of Tom Vassell because Tom didn't like trading on the Mediterranean,
Right.
So
As a theme.
yeah. And so since they do Ludology, is kind of like taking a deeper look at board games and the way the thinkingness of it and all that stuff. They designed this, I'm pretty sure, throughout the podcast, like on podcast episodes. They were designing it. So
that's cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. And they're talking about it, the different stages as they went along, like what's going on now and all that. I didn't actually listen to them, but I'm pretty sure I remember that happening.
Okay.
Could have been a dream. I don't know.
No, that sounds.
Could have been a dream.
It could have been a dream.
It sounds very plausible.
That's what I dreamed about.
Having a 3-year-old questions your dreams now. Was that? Are you sure that was a real story? Because he just says some crazy stuff. He's like, many years ago, I suffered an injury on a train. I'm like, was that a dream? Anyway, it's really funny. But anything else you want to talk about? Trade on the Tigress? I think we all liked it.
Yeah, I liked it.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
that's cool. Anything else for you, Eric?
Nope.
Cool. Trade on the Tigress. If you like games with some real-time trading element, but still has a deep enough game to not just be random, check out Trade on the Tigress.